Pronto.
Já está tudo ligado?
Acho que sim. Para passar os slides. Não tem. Ah, não, está tranquilo. Só três slides. Tens de baixar isto e passar.
Welcome back to the last part of this first day of the MediMare project Symposium. And we will go on from now onwards with the international call for papers presentation. So we received, as I told you before, 14 responses to our call. All of them were highly valuable, and so we decided that they all should present naturally in a short time frame that we had. So I will ask each of the participants to take 8 minutes to 10, no longer, so that we can still debate at the end. So in this first panel, we'll talk about maritime mediation and SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. We have 6 presentations aligned. We have most of our presenters already here with us or online. So we will start immediately with Roberta Mourão Donato, that will present on commercial maritime mediation as a means of fulfilling ESG purposes within the corporate social responsibility norms. And just put that there.
And how? Oh, just there.
Just there.
Okay.
So I give you the floor.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I would first like to thank Professor Dr. Dulce Lopes for the opportunity to be presenting in this call for papers. In my presentation this afternoon, I'm going to talk about why and how I consider maritime mediation should be the first alternative for a corporation's sustainable strategy within its corporate social responsibility norms, as mean as fulfilling ESG purposes. There has been recently a continuous search for more sustainable means of solving conflicts, as well as for means for saving public and private resources in all forms. Time is money. The aphorism attributed to Benjamin Franklin would state. In the maritime area, this is especially true. A ship laid at the port must pay an enormous amount of money in demurrage, in costs of labor, and in costs of losses. Therefore, it is important to find means for solving maritime conflicts in a speedier way. Mediation, in our understanding, would constitute part of an economic sustainable strategy, since it is a means of saving corporations' resources and fulfilling social responsibility goals. Maritime disputes have very particular characteristics due to the nature of the maritime activities. They usually relate to the transportation of goods and persons through the oceans, crossing international borders. Therefore, maritime disputes have an intrinsic international nature, and several disputes are regarding what is the applicable law and regarding jurisdictional matters. The maritime sector has a history of using alternative dispute resolution means. The most commonly used is arbitration. But since arbitration has become each time more bureaucratic and litigant, parties are changing to other forms. Mediation gains grounds in this context. For some scholars, it is already a very broadly used form. But since it is a confidential and private form of solving conflicts, there are no records of its numbers. Indication of its grown activities is that it is more regulated by the international associations through its rules of mediations and mediation clauses. Also, states have in the past year passed legislation to foment the use of mediation, from which we can refer to the United Kingdom, the European Union and all its member states, Brazil, and India. Mediation is a procedure in which impartial third parties helps the conflicting parties to find a solution for their conflicts. The parties are the ones to determine how the mediation procedure will happen and define the mediation agreement. It is a faster, more flexible, voluntary, private, and confidential procedure. Due to the international nature of the maritime conflict, it is a win-win procedure, since the parties may define the exact way in which they want the decision, not referring to any specific legislation. Also, due to its voluntary nature, it is more likely the parties will willingly execute the agreement without the need for a judicial enforcing procedure. It is important to mention that, in case it is needed, the mediation agreement may be executed in some states without being ratified. And finally, mediation is known to restore relationships, a very important characteristic in an area with very few players, such as the maritime area. As to the downside of mediation, in some states, it does not interrupt the statute of limitation, and the mediator does not have any judicial powers, such as to require protective measures. Now entering the corporate social responsibility. Corporate social responsibility norms, differently from the obligations derived from legal responsibility of corporations, are those norms and commands that are not mandatory. They are linked to moral duties and connected to norms that, if not enforced, will only generate social censure. There are no sanctions or legal enforcement. The main goal of corporations is to generate profit for their shareholders. This has been the traditional view, which has had its interpretation changed. The more modern view is that corporations are not formed solely to generate profit for their shareholders, but also to bring benefits and positive changes in the environment they operate in. There is not a legal obligation for companies to act in such a manner, but there is pressure from the society that sees responsible and sustainable companies as more valuable ones. There are even indexes of stocks of these corporations in open market. These would be the corporations that search actions of impact in ESG. One example is the Index of Business Sustainability B3 from Ibovespa, which includes in its index corporations that are committed to sustainable and ESG practices and policies. Another form of checking for this requisite is to make sure the corporations follow the Sustainable Development Goals. ESG norms are implemented in the corporations through their corporate governance codes, and although not legally binding, they are a pressure tool for the investors. Corporate social responsibility is present in the maritime industry, but needs to be more developed. What we're defending here is the inclusion of mediation as a primary attempt for corporations as a part of their policies of social responsibility. It is by means of their corporate social responsibility norms that the corporations will be able to regulate internally what ESG practices they will implement. Matters related to sustainability should be foreseen by the corporations within their corporate governance codes. Litigation leads to higher costs, higher time to solve the demand, and there is a need for financial coverage financial coverage for the litigation costs. The money is held on an accountability account until the end of the litigation, money that could be used to generate more wealth for the company. Also, an important relationship could be damaged, which is a great loss. And just as a reminder, we are not defending mediation to be mandatory, which could infringe the voluntariness principle, but a mediation attempt or mediation as a first step towards solving conflict. Sustainable development goals were created with the aim of reinforcing the need of corporations to become socially responsible by implementing the goals that most fit their purposes. The promotion of the use of mediation by maritime corporations would fit Sustainable Development Goal 16, since it could give access to justice to all corporations and individuals working in the area, which might be barred from legal access in litigation or arbitration, for instance, due to its high costs and its high bureaucratic norms. In our understanding, the promotion of the use of mediation by maritime mediation corporations fits this purpose, as it leads to more gains to all parties involved, as well as more access to justice by all parties. This is important when we think about the power imbalance of the corporations and the persons involved in the maritime area. Mediation would support for smaller corporations or persons to seek for solving conflicts without having higher costs and in smaller time frames. Therefore, we understand it is the most beneficial for the corporation's interest if mediation is the primary means of solving conflicts. Of course, there are situations in which it cannot be used, but it is important to include as a rule in the corporate social responsibility norms that the mediation is the primary resolution means, due to its benefits for the corporations, its shareholders, and its stakeholders. We believe maritime mediation is a tool for improving sustainable development, social awareness, and corporate economic gains. Also, we note that mediation should be the preferred method for all corporations and not just the maritime ones. There are more gains to it than the theory perceives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and right in time. You made it.
I did.
And you managed to put lots and find lots of important issues in one. It seems simple, but it has lots of complex ideas in one presentation. So, and going forth, we have also an area that's linked to ESG sustainability. We have Luisa Murimbaja and Milena Barbosa Melo, although Luis is presenting today, right? And they will present, well, Luis will present in both of their names, on ocean dumping and the use of mediation. Also a very interesting issue. I'm very eager to hear about it. So you have the floor, Luis.
Hi everyone. First of all, I would like to praise the table and the entire organization of this beautiful event, specifically Professor Lucy and Roberto. In the second home, that is the Legal Institute, and my great dear colleagues, and in particular, Professor Milena Barbosa Melo, who instigated me to this work with her. So our job is ocean dumping and the use of mediation. So considering the reality of the beaches in the world, it's worth noting that the marine environment, beyond its benefits to human health, enables the economic development of society. The interest in exploring the coastal zones seems to be contradictory, since there is a mismatch between the need to explore it and the importance of caring for it. Many legal systems established natural resources are limited, and the current society must know how to take care, explore, and utilize the environment research so the future generation can have access to its benefits. Nonetheless, despite being a right established in the legal systems, the reality of Siberia's beaches on the coast around the world seems to be far away from the constitutional reality, since ocean dumping is quite frequently. Reality on these beaches, most of them urban scarce environmental protection specialists, since according to the BRT, in 2017, among about 5,622 Olympic sports untreated COH were found in the ocean. Therefore, dumping sewage in the environment not only violates the many legal systems, but all the other conventions and international bills that manage environment protection, especially the marine environment. On the damage side, it's possible to identify three perspectives, namely the environment, local population, and society. Regarding the environment, sewage dumping on the beach is strongly prejudicial to the biodiversity because it is endangers the lives of animals, seaweed, and the other marine species. Sometimes what can happen is eutrophication, a decomposition process of organic elements from the sewage that multiplies the superficial algae, which reduces solar lights in the water and subsequently the level of oxygen in the air. This can impact society thanks to the possible reduction of tourism followed by the practice in the local economy, and the absence of tourists results in less spending and the less monetary gain for the local tradespeople. And when the population income decreases, the whole social and political system suffers because it is necessary to spend public resources to help these people in a state of economic emergencies. Thus, this event that dumping sewage on the beach not only warrants against the constitutional device which deals with an ecologically balanced environment, but fundamentally the quality of life rights to the freedom and pleasure that is the human rights established in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The responsibility of the public authority to reinforce what is shown normative text, and if we conclude that is a tool several of completely by another guideline, it's worth pointing out that the United Nations summons all their members to work hard on fulfilling the development goals, especially Objective 14, which denotes the importance of established measures to maintain and protect the usage and the resources of the oceans. Since looking at the paths outlined for goals 14, we are already amongst to 2025, but still a long way archive in the ideals in terms of prevention and significant reduction of marine pollution of all kinds. The biggest challenge it is regard will undoubtedly to be guarantee the conservation and sustainable use of the oceans and their resources by international law. But as reflected in the United Nations Conventions of the Law of the Sea, which establishes the legal framework on the conservation and sustainable use of the ocean and their resources, as recorded in paragraph 158 of the Kyoto Report. Thus, maritime mediation has been seen as an important instrument for the realization of international law and the application of the guideline outlined by goals 14. This objective in which we still have a long way to go. Conclusions. Thus, it is believed that the use of mediation will be able to expand the capacity of reflections of companies, public power, and also population itself with regards to the inappropriate use of the seas, and thus to be able to prevent environmental and consequently social damage. For this to happen, the population must be aware that it is up to every season to keep the beaches and clean and eating in this fight. The most important thing is the union between society and public authorities. Therefore, it is understood that mediation in line with the fulfillment of the Sustainable Development Goal 13, it's a powerful with regard to the inspection and control of the maritime environment, as it enables the reduction of environmental impacts and producer goals, facilitating access to justice for all participated involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Louise, and thank you, Milena, although she probably is looking at you on YouTube and saying good work. It was also a very interesting presentation on issues that are really complicated to solve, or at least to minimize, and I think mediation could play a role on that too, mostly when ocean dumping is performed under legal activities, because we know that there are a lot of illegal and irregularities going on in this area. So we will continue. Lais is not yet with us, so we will move on to Catarina. Catarina, I think you are already with presentation abilities, right, Catarina? You can speak and present. I think you can. Maybe not. Look, it's not Fernando. I put participants, Catarina. Okay, okay, she's accepted. Okay, she has not accepted yet. So Catarina has accepted yet. Thank you, Catarina. So whenever you are online, I will invite you to.
Yes, hello. I'm sorry, I was expecting other person first.
No problem, Catarina, because I just promoted you to speaker.
Yeah.
And I'm promoting a while Maria João to speak also in this part. So Catarina will talk to us about how to harmonize interests, right?
Yes.
Mediation is a pathway for conflict resolution between killer whale conservation and the shipping industry, an area that I think we have in one point or the other followed all the evolution in this area, but also still the constraints that exist in many legislations. But I think it's better to hear from the people who really know this, which is Catarina. Yes, and the floor you have, well, up most 10 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to share.
I think you can already, can you?
Yes.
Maybe not. Yes.
Is it there? Okay, nice. So, as it been said, my name is Catarina Branco, and my paper's title is Harmonizing Interests, Mediation as a Pathway for Conflict Resolution between Killer Whale Conservation and the Shipping Industry. So a fast overview of this problematic is that, first of all, marine mammals are highly susceptible to sound and they are impacted by noise. And because the noise has a potential to cause adverse impacts when its frequency is overlapped with the frequencies of a species audiogram. And so this is true for marine mammals, but it is also true for the southern resident killer whale, which is a species of orca, which I'm going to refer as SRPW to be easier. So we have this problem in one hand, and on the other, according to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, approximately 90% of the global trade occurring worldwide is done with commercial shipping. So among all the anthropogenic sources of noise in the ocean, the commercial shipping is the most common one. And so all of this leads to one big problem, which is the sound from shipping as a potential to lower survival rates and reproductive success of these species. So on more focus on the case study, which is the Salish Sea, which is located on the west side of Canada near Vancouver, but also Seattle, the United States. So it is a sea located very close to the border. And the Salish Sea is, on one hand, officially acknowledged as an essential habitat for the SRKW, but at the same time is a highly traversed area with approaches to industrial ports and coastal cities, international shipping lanes, ferry routes, and recreational vessel traffic. So as you can imagine, this essential habitat for this species of orca is a common space for a very big industry. And with this species being so endangered, it faces a very high extinction rate with only 75 individuals left in the wild, including 22 females capable of breeding. So I want to say that a lot of studies, a lot of academic research has been made about this issue, about the conservation of these species. A lot of measures and possible solutions have been proposed by marine conservationists. And so there's a big number of possible solutions, but currently Canada doesn't limit anthropogenic noise output in the ocean. But so a few solutions that I highlighted are the speed reduction implemented by commercial vessels that leads to substantial reductions in noise exposure, and also to modify the existing shipping routes as suggested by the IMO, the International Maritime Organization. And so, as you can imagine, on one hand, we have marine conservationists calling for stricter regulations, and on the other, you have the shipping industry that confronts economic pressures and operational constraints. And so this conflict has a very high potential for economic conflict. It is important to say that this particular species is protected under the Canada's Species at Risk Act, the SARA, but also is protected at the United States Endangered Species Act, and so which is called ESA. And it is relevant to say that ESA has some guidelines on imposing vessel speed restrictions to protect another kind of whale species. I think it's the blue whale. So they impose restrictions on speed, and these restrictions were met with very high resistance from the shipping industry and the other industries that operate with vessels on the sea. Also, the American Pilots Association say that imposing restrictions on speed on vessels might be dangerous because in case of adverse weather conditions, this might be unsafe for the crew members. So there is a lot of tension between these two parts. And what I searched for what I searched, I couldn't find a mediation process being done on this conflict. So I thought of it as a possible solution or to address this challenge. And so in a very resumed way, I characterized what could be a mediation process for this case and identified in a resumed way the involved parties. And so it will be local stakeholders that will have a type of contact, which is called follow from distance. Environmental organizations will be kept informed, legal specialists will be kept satisfied, and obviously there will be a very big engagement with government agencies, decision makers, industry representatives, and researchers. So at last, it is important to state that in this case, I think that the mediator should not possess expert level of knowledge in mammal conservation, nor the shipping industry. So there will be impartiality, and it will be avoided any kinds of conflicts of interest. So that's it. I don't know if the 8 minutes have been passed, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Katerina. Well, I like it a lot. You could use lots of your already skills on maritime mediation to put it to use in a specific area, and a very important one, as I started by saying, and also trying to reflect on what could be kind of the outcomes, who would be satisfied with the mediation, what is the level of satisfaction that we can aim to in such a complex mediation, such as one that would take into account this very urgent and complex issue. Thank you a lot, Katerina. So keep, please stay there if you want to turn off the camera, because we'll have a small moment for Q&A. I will promote Maria João now to speaker. So Maria João, you're ready. You already accepted. So, Maria João, whenever we can see you, hi, you can turn on the camera.
Okay.
Hi, Maria João. Yes, we can see you and hear you perfectly.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Maria João is also presenting a paper with, well, a group of colleagues, Paula Chainho, Thomas Golding, Frederico Carvalho, Sara Cabral, Filipe Gomes Ferreira, and Lia Vasconcelos. We have some of them here in the audience, but I think the presentation will be done by Maria João alone, right, Maria João?
Yes.
And the presentation will be on how can collaborative process conciliate biodiversity conservation and marine resources exploitation? It's not the same case as before. We were talking about also fishing and sea as infrastructure and killer whales, but we have now the Manila Clam National Action Plan. So another application of maritime mediation and also the findings of the project to this situation. So, Maria João, I give you the floor. You have at most 10 minutes to present. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will share my screen. Are you seeing them?
Yeah,
Yes.
perfect.
Okay, I will start now. Thank you for inviting me, for accepting me, nor inviting me for do the presentation in the seminar. And thank you all. This was all in the sequences of the MediMare course for mediation, the intensive course. And I was challenged to do this for one of my colleagues, and I'm very pleased to be here. So I will talk in the name of a team, a big team that has been working in this Manila Clam National project. And I will, we have not ended the project yet, and I will give you a brief comments about what the process has been. So first, introducing the Manila Clam problem. This is a bivalve species that is an exotic species. It comes from Asia. It's native in Asia, and it was introduced in Portugal for more than 30 years now. But this is an exotic species that has these characteristics of being invasive, and this is different. We have a lot of species that are exotic, but that are not invasive. And Manila clam has these characteristics of high reproductive rates and growth rates, and also an ability to be in environmental conditions that other species cannot be. So she grows too much, and sometimes she can take the place of others. And that happened in several systems in Portugal, and we have it now until the Rio de Aveiro from south to north. So the Manila clam, because of these characteristics of being so invasive, has been exploited in several of the systems, and we have made an estimation in 2019 for 4 systems in Portugal, and we have estimated that more than 30 million euros are the direct revenue from the cost paid directly to the fishermen. So in the value chain, the annual direct revenue is much higher, and we have estimated to be more than 30 million euros. So we are talking about a species that is invasive, but has been since 2000 being highly exploited in Portugal, and is an important revenue for several fishing communities. But as I told you, it is an invasive species, and these invasive alien species are a big problem worldwide that has been concerning several the European Union and other institutions all over the world, because it has devastating impacts in biodiversity, can take places of other species, and also it has impacts in the economic terms. For instance, in Europe, it was estimated that it can have an impact of 12 billion euros per year. So this is a big problem. It mainly affects also the shipping and also the agriculture infrastructure. So this is a big problem, not only for the biodiversity, but for other sectors in our society. And because of that, the states have introduced regulations to try to control this situation. And in Portugal, we approved in 2019 this decree law that defines the regime legal that are applicable for the exotic species. And what is said in this regime is that it's forbidden to hold, cultivate, breed, trade, or introduce in the nature the restocking the species that are in this national list of invasive species. And this is the case of the Manila clam. It's an invasive species. It is in the list. And as I told you in the former slide, we also are exploiting these species. So there are a gap in the law in Portugal, because the conservation law says it is forbidden to trade and to have to hold the species, but in the fisheries legislation there are regulations specific to this species. So this decree law also says that any invasive species should have a national or local action plan. And this law is the project we are involved now at MediMare to prepare this national plan of Manila clam and to try to solve this gap in the law that exists now in Portugal. So we have, but this law was in 2019, as I told you. Simultaneously, we were developing a project that was funded by Marvin Vint, and to assess the status of the species. It was a big team, a lot of components, and biological and ecological components of the species, but also we at this period, because of the importance of the fishery, also studied the management and governance. And this is what interests us here in the scope of the mediation process, because we started in Nipoges to approach the fishing community. It was more easier now that we are trying to implement and develop this action plan to talk with the stakeholders and to prepare an action plan that actually works, because the stakeholders must be involved, so in order that the action plan can control the species, because it is not possible to eradicate the species. I forgot to say to you, because it's a bivalve that breeds in the water, larvae are on the water, so it's impossible to eradicate the species. That is normally the measure adopted for invasive species. So we have to find other solutions to control the dissemination for other Portuguese systems, and in order that it doesn't affect our biodiversity in the estuaries. So this NIPOGES project was very important as a baseline for the development of the action plan. So an action plan is mostly described as a mediation process where we have to have a group of persons to discuss, stakeholders interested in the sector, to discuss the actions that they consensual and in compromise decide that are important to control and to achieve the goals established. And it must be inclusive. It must contain all the stakeholders that are important for the process, of course. And one of the things that is very important in this action plan that we are trying to get to is to get realistic goals for this plan. So as I told you, it's not possible to eradicate the species, so let's forget the eradication purpose and try to control it by regulating the fisheries. And that's what we are doing, have been doing with mostly with fishery communities. So we have engaged in an approach of collaboration with the stakeholders, mostly in the initial part of the project, in NIPOGES project. We mostly talk with the fishermen that were the more related with the problem as we see it, but this allow us to understand the problem as a whole, as a broader problem, what kind of issues would be related with the Manila clam exploitation that we should address also, and not only regulating the activity by itself. So we have developed several participatory sections between 2008 and 19 and 22, and we have now in the Manila Action Plan recovered again all these stakeholders to continue these reunions. So we have first mapped to the stakeholders, ensure all the inclusion of the different parts, and have also have concern of decentralizing the action, because this occurs in a lot of estuaries in Portugal, and so to include the local authorities and local interests, we have made these participatory sections decentralized. So we have an agenda in each section where we present the state of the results of the NIPOGES or other research we have been performing, and then we engage the stakeholders in the dialogue to stimulate ideas and to understand and establish measures that are consensual. So one of the things that is interesting in the 4 systems we have worked is the difference. This was by the end of the 2022, we identified these problems that are in this table. And as you can see, there are a lot of different issues in each system that I will not have time to talk about. Maybe one of the things that is here more destaque is the estuary of Tagus, where maybe we have heard these recent problems with immigration and immigration exploitation. So this is about this problem we have heard recently in the news is about the Manila clam exploitation. So this is a issue with very sensitive that we have to involve a lot of stakeholders and government agencies to resolve. So because of this first part led me to this big great amount of issues to solve, we have to adapt for each of the systems. The 4 systems we are talking here about have enlarged the stakeholders. We have included in the second moment the health agencies, for instance, and more enforcement, because there is a lot of illegalities going on in the Manila clam exploitation. So from the phase 1 to phase 2, we have adapted to this context variability and have engaged different stakeholders in the process. So now in the moment we are elaborating this action plan. It is supposed to be ended because this was contract with the National Conservation Institute for MARE to prepare with cooperation with the other stakeholders. So we will have a proposal for this action plan that will emerge from this participation and collaboration activities we have been developing. So then we will give it to consultation for the stakeholders, and then we will deliver it for the institute to be approved in the by the Council of Ministers. That's where these actions plans are approved. So this is an example of our conflict between marine conservation, in this case, estuary conservation of biodiversity, can be through mediation. We were able to get a solution for this invasive problem of Manila clam by regulating the fishery. There is no, probably there could be other solutions, but this was the one that we arranged to solve this problem by talking with the stakeholders. And that's it.
Thank you,
for
Maria
listening.
João.
I'm sorry for taking so much time.
Thank you, Maria João, and thank you to all the presenters. We will hear in a minute Juliana Chediek, and let's see if Laís can join us still. But at this point, we had some presentations, and I would like to ask if someone has any questions to pose to the speakers or not. No? On sustainability, climate change, any social development objective. Well, then we were very good. All of the speakers were really good. Thank you for showing how mediation can be applied from context, in several contexts, and from a wide range of issues, and in this case, some mostly environmental ones that were dealt here today. But of course, it has always an impact in relationships, right? In relationships, in entities, either private persons, either corporations, either public entities, NGOs. So these are the actors of this mediation. And the more complex the issue is, the more complex also the subjective dimension of the mediation. So thank you very much for giving us this insight. I thank you all. And maybe since we have already our next participants from the next panel, maybe I will call them here to the floor, please. So I'll ask someone to come and change the names. So I will ask, well, Zainab is already online, I believe. So someone has to help me with this. I cannot do it at the same time. So Zainab is already. I will and I will try to make this. I don't know what's happening here. Look at this. Fernando, is everything okay? It's like this. Just saw it now. So I'll just put this here. I don't know what's happening here. This is a pen, USB pen. We have the Zoom connected, but I think something fell in the meanwhile. So, Maria João and Catarina, thank you very much. Then I will, as I said, call the next panel. It will be Zainab, who is already waiting. I'll promote Zainab to speaker. I hope you can. Zainab will be here with us as speaker in a while. I call Francisca Ventral to the table. Isabela Moreira Antunes do Nascimento, tu, and Luisa Barbosa and Liedja. So let's continue. Zainab is there. Hello, Zainab. Lovely to see you. We'll start in a minute with you. Let's just change the tables around here because in this panel, we are the only one presenting online and everyone else is here. I hope you could have been here in Coimbra too. But where are you now? Where is
In Turkey.
Yeah, in Turkey, of course.
Yeah.
Well, are we here already? Everyone? Yes? Everyone? Yeah. So let's start, Zainab. Zainab will, in this second panel, the idea is to talk a little bit about maritime mediation and maritime mediation deconstructed. So several points, specific points on the processes of mediation in maritime law that are still being reflected upon, discussed. So it is important to look at them. Most of them here are legal. The two first, and then we have 10 techniques for maritime mediation, aspects of communication. Then we have an idea more theory and philosophical notion of what is mediation. So it's a good mix of understanding mediation at its core better. And Zainab will start with the rise of med-arm processes in maritime law, implications of the UK's ratification of the Singapore. This is an issue, Zainab, that we try to discuss a bit in our online course and also in our intensive course. So I'm very eager to see what you think about this. You have 10 minutes at most, and I give you the floor.
Okay, thank you so much. So I will share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, can you see my slide?
Perfect.
Okay. So, good evening, all esteemed speakers and participants. I am Zeynep Damlaşık from Turkey. I'm sorry that I cannot be with you today, but I hope I can meet you in the next organizations. So, today I would like to present my paper titled The Rise of MediMare Processes in the Maritime Dispute Resolution, Implications of the United Kingdom's Signature of the Singapore Convention. So here is my agenda. I want to begin with introducing the special characteristics of maritime disputes. Then I will continue with the question, which I will answer it in the later part of the presentation. Then I will mention related subject, as you can see on the screen, and I will give my answer to the question at the beginning. Then finally, I will conclude my presentation by sharing my recommendation on this subject. So, as you all know, there are some special characteristics of maritime disputes. And firstly, parties of the maritime disputes are generally from different countries. So there's an international dimension. This international nature creates a cross-border and cross-cultural dynamics. And of course, it causes complex legal framework, which includes many national laws, rules, and agreements. Also, maritime disputes necessitates the specialized expertise, not only on maritime law, but also on international trade, industry practices, and technical aspects. And finally, maritime disputes have time-sensitive nature, since maritime activities are pricey, and the lengthy resolution process can cause a huge financial losses for industry players. So now I want to make you think about this question. What is the most effective dispute resolution strategy for an English maritime operator, which has a branch office in Turkey, to resolve its dispute with a customer located in Georgia? So there are 4 mechanisms to solve this, and actually, it's valid for all maritime disputes. So these are negotiation, mediation, arbitration, and litigation. As you all know, in negotiation, parties discuss for mutually acceptable solution without the third party involvement. On the other hand, in mediation, there is a neutral third party who is mediator to help parties to reach a mutually and satisfactory agreement. However, in this point, it is important that in mediation, it is not obligatory for parties to reach an agreement. So settlement is not obligatory in the mediation. So in an arbitration, there is also a neutral third party who is arbitrator or a panel. But this time, third party renders a binding decision after considering the arguments and evidence presented by the disputed parties. So finally, litigation refers to resolving disputes through national courts. So now I will introduce the concept of MediMare. So actually, MediMare is a dispute resolution mechanism that combines the mediation and arbitration. This process begins with mediation. And if parties fail to reach an agreement in the mediation phase, then mediator becomes an arbitrator and renders a binding decision. By providing parties with the option to proceed to arbitration after an unsuccessful mediation attempt, the MediMare process offers a fallback position that ensures the ultimate resolution of disputes in a binding manner. This process, of course, is cost-effective, time-efficient, and it protects the ongoing relationship among the disputed parties. Here, I will mention the United Nations Convention on International Settlement Agreements resulting from mediation, so namely the Singapore Convention. The Convention establishes the consistent standards on the cross-border enforcement of international settlement agreements resulting from mediation, of course. So the Convention, signed by 46 countries on August 2019, when it is opened for signature, and it is entered into force in September 2020. Currently, there are 56 countries have signed the convention, and 11 countries have ratified it, including Georgia, Uruguay, and Turkey. Recently, on the 3rd of May, the United Kingdom signed the convention, and now it is expected that the United Kingdom will ratify the convention in the near future. For the convention, there is a lack of uniformity, uncertainty, and there were some potential challenges in the international arena concerning the recognition and enforcement of mediated settlements across different jurisdictions. So these conventions fills the gap by providing uniform and global standards on the mediated settlement agreements. So what is the role of the United Kingdom in maritime law and maritime dispute resolution? With a rich maritime heritage dating back centuries, the United Kingdom played a vital and central role in establishing and shaping international maritime law. So with the efforts of highly experienced and educated judges and legal professionals, the United Kingdom's courts provide consistency, predictability, and stability in the interpretation and the application of maritime law. So therefore, the United Kingdom's long-standing reputation as a fair and neutral jurisdiction for resolving the maritime disputes especially, attracts parties from all around the world to seek resolution within the United Kingdom's legal system. The statistics shows that London is the preferred center with an 80% of 80% share of international maritime arbitrations. And the report of the London Maritime Arbitration Association, which sees the 95% of the caseload in London, shows an increase of almost 15% in appointments in the last year. So this is an important number, actually. So by signing the Singapore Convention, the United Kingdom demonstrates its dedication to promote mediation as an effective alternative dispute resolution method. So this commitment can contribute to the broader acceptance of MediMare process globally as an effective and efficient means of dispute resolution procedure. The United Kingdom's support can encourage parties to resort to MediMare process as all parties have already known that the final decision of the disputes in a binding manner can be enforced effectively in their countries. So here, I will give my answer to the question which I have raised at the beginning of my presentation. So in this case, it will be the most effective strategy to resort to the Singapore Convention, as both Turkey and Georgia have already ratified the Singapore Convention. So it's the most logical way for parties to initially resort to mediation. And if mediation proves unsuccessful and parties fail to reach a mutually and satisfactory agreement, then parties can shift to the arbitration phase for a definitive solution that can be effectively enforced in their countries. So here, as a conclusion, the Singapore Convention promotes the recognition and enforcement of mediated settlements across different jurisdictions. So, and the United Kingdom's signature of this convention expedites the adoption and recognition of the MediMare process globally. However, as a recommendation, in order for the decision to be more effective and fair, mediator and arbitrator should be different professionals. Otherwise, parties engaged in mediation may hesitate to disclose the underlying facts behind the conflicts by fearing that such disclosures might be used against them during the following arbitration phase. So I think it's an important recommendation for this procedure. So thank you for listening. It's an honor for me to present my paper in such a distinguished conference. So
Thank you, Zainab. Thank you. Well, you did kind of an eagle's flight over all these forms of dispute resolution, and you started with a case and you solved the case. That's the most important thing, and I think you did it quite well, very skillfully. So thank you, Zainab, for your participation, and thank you for respecting the time. And we will go on from here now to Francisca Bental with a presentation on the application of customary rules in the process of maritime mediation. More a substantial point of view, but let's go, Francisca, you have the floor. See? You have.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, thank you, Professor Adut. Thank you all. So, this topic here, it's a conclusion what I learned about mediation during 2 weeks in the area, and I start is why the customary rules we can apply for mediation. And so the dynamics and the complex of maritime relationship influence sea operation to resolve the peaceful solutions, to resolve the conflicts which they had involved. Mediation is an alternative dispute resolution method characterized by a high degree of voluntary autonomy on the part and the parties. So this article, as I said before, it has subject how the process maritime, the mediation have to apply the rule customer rule. And the fields I see with about the conflict resolution in law of the sea. So as you know, the law of the sea, international law of the sea, is stands for customer rules. And the history of the human integration between peoples have taken place recently and the ocean, which have served as the dynamic space and cultural interaction, trade, contracts between peoples and civilization. Over the time, this interrelationship expanded and the project new issues that were customer resolved. And so the regulation of the issues of the sea was only possible through the leadership and the preservation of the United Nations Organization. So the Article 13.3, paragraph 1 of the United Nations Charter gives open that the title is peaceful resolution. There are some mediation. So, and these combine this article and the 278, the Convention of Unity Nations, the UNCLOS law. So they accept that the parties have to apply the mediation. So of course, I speak here only this about the public conflicts. Of course, if we can public conflicts and the private also is. And but this it's possible with this article allow the parties at the start to resolve those conflicts between and shows these characters mediation and except in the existence of regional or bilateral agreements in which they start parts have established and the specific procedures of conflict. So about of mediation and the negotiation, other more tool to resolve resolution peaceful. That's the start. First, these conflicts have to choose other more. If they bilateral or regional threats, they choose. So then I choose what is the mediation. Follow this. What mediation has alternative method for conflict resolution. So any legal relationship is subject of conflict. It is the law of creates various interests of the parties. So despite of the great importance that the judicial society has all the dynamic and creates conflicts of great complexity, which the system itself. So here I understood that of course the judicial system is good, but to maritime, I understood that the best shows the path with mediation because it's not expensive, flexible, and take easy the resolution Of course, when we have a conflict about this, thank you. So, so I understood that here this kind of thing I speak more about the maritime, not low sea, but for about maritime. When have about, for example, trades, maritime, and the transport forever. Because as you start this, when you start this at the beginning, Professor, not Professor Adams, but Professor Assumpção Krishna saw that now the sea it's a crowd. It's absolutely crowd. There are a lot of activity, not only energy and the couple now. Traditional, we know the traditional, but nowadays there are more other activity that before it's not possible, but now we can see. So this kind of activity is supposed to be the conflict. How do you speak about this? A lot much because we know that the system of duties is slow, and for operator, operator needs quickly the resolution. So I understood that here because I take my idea that to law of sea, international sea, that this principle is talked about the customer. And this like why you don't applicate this for maritime, that's because we know that mediator is free to application, how they conduct this process. So in the conclusion, I say that this I say that it's a maritime mediation best way to, of course, I agree that mediation is the best way to depart shows to conflict in maritime. But of course, mediation have to applicate in process because the uncles allow that they have to applicate is rule. And of course, the story about the maritime law shows that the rule, customer rules, it's an important. Of course, if this rule don't it's how I can say it's not prohibited for positive rule. Yes.
These customary rules are not imperative?
Yeah, yes, if this customer rules not have imperative law about the system, but if you see how case to use all activity we didn't see, all follow more the customer rule, because but customer I speak about the customer rules, how this activity the connection. Yes. And for me, I think that is the best way that mediation have to choose this is capable to apply the mediation conflicts, not follow only the law positive, but to understand how the activity, how the partners they follow this. And then of course, if they agree about the normal rule, why not follow this way? So this is how I have to show this. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Thank you for the effort and for trying to engage customary rules with imperative norms and how they may interact in this field. And we move on to Isabela Moreira Antunes do Nascimento, that will talk about techniques for maritime mediation, aspects for a better communication, an area that she is working on now. So let's apply it to mediation. Isabela, 10 minutes.
Good afternoon. Initially, I would like to thank for the opportunity to participate in this event, to the Coordinating Council of the Legal Institute of the Faculty of Law of the University of Coimbra, through Sotor, José Manuel Araújo Linhares. And also to the MediMare project through Sotoras, Dulce Lopes, and Katia Marques. My paper is called Techniques for Maritime Mediation, Aspects for a Better Communication. And it is about 3 topics, which are learn and explore the skills of a mediator in the maritime field. Second, communication competence. And third, tools to support parties in decision making. So, the alternative dispute resolutions have gained prominence in the expectation of effective resolution of various conflicts, including the maritime ones, inserting itself into the multi-door courthouse system, according to the techniques necessary to resolve each type of conflict. There are many mechanisms, but mediation is highlighted to investigate its techniques, especially with regard to facilitating communication between those involved. It's possible to cite numerous compositional skills as cognitive, perceptive, emotional, communicative, creative thinking, negotiation, and critical thinking, as well as numerous negotiation and communication tools. Emphasizing the communicative compositional competence, I continue with the analysis of some communication techniques as tools, without the pretension of exhausting them, to later conclude with the nonviolent communication of Rosenbach. Often, people are unable to dialogue because of emotional factors. Until the tensions are worked out, it is unlikely that a solution to the conflict will be found. So, among these techniques, I start seeking reestablishment of communication. This implies devoting special attention to the way the context of the speeches are presented, assist in the identification of alternative or peripheral histories as a set of positive events and situations of understanding that are not included in the belligerent narrative initially portrayed, quoting Almeida, and clarifying the meaning of words or expressions with multiple dialects. Second, I would like to mention prevention of conflict, because one of the purposes is avoid intensification of potential litigation, and through the reestablishment of communication to prevent other conflicts from escalating in the litigation scenario, phenomenon that, quoting Tartucci, is called remain litigation. Third, interrogative mode, in which sense the questions have several functions. Quoting Tartucci again, to allow the mediator to speak for himself directly to the other, to reveal feelings, doubts, emotions, to demonstrate the complexity of conflict, and to stimulate the creation of ideas. The questions are useful to highlight what is missing, what, when, where, with whom, with what, for where. They are responsible for enable reflection, the generation of ideas, information, alternatives, and the identification of solutions and authors. Active listen, in turn, refers to the understanding of the needs and interests core to the conflict, rather than superficial demands, that is, the real data. At the point, it is not merely about listening as natural to everyone who has a function auditory apparatus, but listening which implies directing attention to the act of listening. Finally, nonviolent communication, NCP, is built on some foundations. Communication that blocks compassion, observe without evaluating, identifying and expressing feelings, take responsibility for our feelings, asking for which enrich our lives, receive with empathy, the power of empathy, connecting compassionately with others, expression angerfully, the use of force to protect, freeing ourselves and advising others, expressing appreciation in non-violent communication, based on Rosenberg. Communication, I think communication with our friends and family is of course easier, and yet has its challenges. So communicating in uncomfortable situations is my main point, because mediating as a type of leadering is not easy. So in conclusion, these techniques, as I said, can be applied to the various fields of mediation, including the maritime, because good communication, verbal and non-verbal, is the first element to be considered in the encounter between people, whether on land or at sea. Thus, the intention of the work is to contribute to development of maritime mediation by reaching the mediator with communication techniques, so that he has better leadership in the sense of good management on conflicts in the complex concreteness. The better prepared he is, the greater his chance to be useful. So, ratifying my acknowledgements, I stay open for debate, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Isabella, for for going through also here a wide range of techniques and trying to discuss ones that can be more valuable and more applicable in maritime mediation. Thank you. And we move on to Luísa Nogueira Barbosa and Niedja de Andrade Silva Forte Santos. I call her normally Niedja, so this is a lot. They both will talk about mediation as a space of reasons in the global maritime normative order. So they bring together both of their knowledges and fields, and will talk to us about what is a space of reasons and how does this work in the maritime field. You do have a presentation. Is it already here? Okay. It's not here. So let's just put this down so that we can find. Okay. Okay. So maybe now we need to put it here. Take this off. Maybe.
No,
this will not. This will.
no.
Leave it here and share screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should share it like this. It's not gonna work.
Not gonna work.
Okay, let's go back there.
Yeah. Let CNET
Let's.
showing.
I think.
Yeah, that's okay.
What's happening here?
Now it's on the
Okay.
the first one.
to start with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Is this okay? Well, then let's go on. 10 minutes.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to congratulate the organizers in the name of Professor Jones. And we also we would like to give an opportunity to the opportunity. Today we will present a spillover of previous research about the resolution of maritime disputes through mediation. Our publication is about the main argument of that study. Our title here is Mediation as a Space of Reasons in the Global Maritime Order. It consists of 6 sections. The introduction provides the contextualization. Global shipping cargo. Global cargo shipping has about 11 billion tons each year. The annual profit in this sector is almost $200 billion. As well, they generate more than $100 billion in fresh cash. Such numbers give rise to economic interests and maritime disputes. Maritime commercial disputes involve multiple norms and often require strong solutions. In fact, the first maritime norms emerged in the Middle Ages as unwritten norms. It's noteworthy that Lex Mercatoria emerged in the 7th century, gathering norms and customs of merchants. In this context, Lex Mercatoria is a subset of Lex Mercatoria. Research problem. Normalization brings 3 main challenges to the resolution of maritime disputes. First, multiple actors. Second, multiple normative objects created by those actors. And third, uncertainty, since such actors, such maritime actors, will choose the norm they want to apply in their maritime disputes. Then, the goal of this research is to demonstrate that mediation creates and safeguards a space of reasons for the creation and justification of narratives with the global normative order. Now I will give the floor to my colleague, Luisa.
Hi, thank you. Well, trying to make it short. In this scenario now, we have the transnationalization of activities, relations, and also law itself. So if we think through a global legal pluralism lens, we could talk here for 20 minutes or more. So making it short, we're going to approach it from the multi-normativity lens, so to say. So that is, and by that, we are using philosophy law background and also political philosophy. That is, that in this, everyone is subjected to multiple normative orders, be there in the family, religion, and with transnationalization, we are also bound to these normative orders in multiple scales. For example, if you want to be a soccer player, you are subjected to the Lex Esportiva, which is from FIFA. If you are doing activities in the maritime industry, you are subjected to Lex Maritima. So, in this concept, the Lex Maritima is here seen, as Nietzsche well said, as a global normative order that regulates the policies, norms, and guides the reasons for positions and actions within the maritime industry. So, to be legitimate, a normative order has to be binding. This is the formal concept. But if we dig in and try to go to the material concept, to be legitimate, this order has also to be an order of justification. Just there. That is, that an order that enables actors to participate in the space of narrative justification. That such actors can provide reasons, refuse reasons for the norms for the norms they are subject to. And narrative justifications are forms of embodied rationality condensed into discourse. So that this person exercise of the right to justification grants the validity and enforceability to their norms of lex mercatoria. And this is the concept that every person has the right to morally assert reasons and demand adequate justifications for political, social, and legal norms that seek to bind them. Well, the development in this research, which is a spin-off from another research, is that mediation, besides having all the qualities that it has as an alternative resolution dispute, has also the potential to create a space of justification for those norms, for the norms of lex maritima. So it addresses two uncertainties, which Nietzsche poses in the beginning, which is going to be the applicable law, since the parties reach an agreement together, they don't really need to be bound by law, but they certainly use a normative framework to base their reasons on. So, and also this jurisdiction, they avoid forum shopping, sorry. So that they provide a space for parties to reach an agreement on the dispute, allowing them to present normative reasons and refusing possible solutions. By that, they themselves are building the space of reasons and the norms which are going to be bound on the industry, as the colleague already said. If it's not against positive law, it's possible. So, besides that, mediation allows the exploration of favorable solutions within the global normative framework of lex maritima, creating such a space that is here already mentioned. So that is mediation. Then mediation enhances the legitimacy of the maritime normative order itself. It not only provides a good space for the conflict resolution, but also legitimize the normative order of the maritime industry, lex maritima. Well, these are the ideas to be retained, which are already mentioned. I don't know if I'm okay with
No, you're okay.
Okay.
You're okay still.
So the normative framework of the maritime commerce is a complex and intertwined set of norms. It's not only state or international norms that, by transnationalization, engage multiple actors, constituting their normative order. Political and legal legitimacy requires order with a space for actors to exercise their right to justification through discourse of being co-actors. Thereby, such norms becomes such orders become social-political legitimate, instead of having
being in power and position and domination. The normative order of the maritime commerce is a complex and intertwined, thank you, but it was already there, so it's okay. So I'm sorry. It was. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to both. It was a quite, how can I say, interesting and very funny presentation. But if you could read beyond the giggling, you could see that it's a really solid presentation too. So it tries really hard to bind areas of thought that we don't think usually together, no, and that we tend not to relate. But of course, this dimension of reasoning, of how to ground some solutions, such as mediation, is also very important from the point of view of legitimacy, right? Socio-political legitimacy, as you said. So thank you very much. I'm just gonna give the floor, although this is a bit of a change regarding our idea at first, but Juliana had to be in her kids' activity, so now she's back with us, and we will move on with her proposed intervention that was still on SDGs, the relevance of maritime mediation to the achievement of the so-called Sustainable Development Goals. Juliana, I give you the floor, 10 minutes at most.
Thank you, Professor Dulce. My name is Juliana Zizek. I'm a PhD student, a PhD candidate at Universidade de Coimbra Law School and a research fellow at Universidade de Coimbra Legal Research Institute. And I'm very proud to be here in this wonderful event hosted by Instituto Jurídico and MediMare project, organized by Professor Dulce, to whom I thank you so much, the project in the person of Professor Dulce, coordinator of this incredible project, and then thank you for the opportunity. Especially, thank you, Professor, for the living example of leadership and kindness. Thank you so much. I'd like to start with a sentence from a great leader called Mother Teresa, who says that none of us, including she or me in case, but none of us can ever do great things. But we can all do small things with great love, and together we can do something wonderful. So mediation is one example of collaboration, cooperation, of working together with love to create understanding, right? And I'll be really quick, and I'm sorry for not having a presentation because we've been 15 days in Leiria working a lot on mediation. And I'd like to present my paper is about connecting mediation with SDGs of the 2030 agenda. So we all know, it's been said really well said here before, that mediation is a great form of alternative dispute resolution of conflicts carried out by public and private entities. And besides its fundamental elements that's been said here before, which are the topics, the dispute, the voluntary nature, and the systematic promotion of communication of bodies, mediation also has an aspect that is not really well explored. It's about the social function, right? So mediation is not confined to the resolution of the conflict. It can also be a way of solving other aspects, social aspects. So my paper would like to explore that. So I'd like to explore and to write more about the relation of mediation and not only the SDG 16, that talks about peace, justice, and efficient institutions. But other SDGs, such as the SDG 12 and the SDG 14. The SDG 12 talks about responsible consumption and production, and the SDG 14 talks about life below water. And it's interesting to observe that SDG 14 can be related to mediation. And when we talk about maritime mediation, we talk about many times boundaries, and we talk about territory in the water. So sometimes we have environmental aspects of conflicts, and conflicts about resources, natural resources that can be stored underwater. So there is an important aspect of mediation and the SDG 14, and it's really well explored by UN, and there are some papers about that, empowering mediators in these areas to, when they solve the conflict, they don't only solve the conflict among parties, but also thinking about other aspects of the equation. So, so this is it. The paper is about that, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Juliana. We have a work in progress, so, but it's a good work in progress. And now I open the floor to everyone that wishes to do a question in general to our speakers. No one is, it's already very advanced here, our time. But in any case, I will just ask a little things, really small thing, which is, what word would better describe maritime mediation for each one of you? A word, or maybe a line. Where do I start, Juliana? You're thinking. Can I start with you? Yeah, it's a good one. Niaja. It's good too.
Connection.
Connection. Yeah.
Connectivity, sorry.
No, connection, connectivity goes rather well. Facility. Yes, Isabella? Wow. Okay, thank you very much for these insights, and we'll move on to our last panel of the day. We will just change the names here, and I will call to the floor Rafael Teixeira Ramos, Carolina Marques, Begoña Fernandez Rodrigues, she's with us since the beginning of the day, and Guilherme Vaz Porto Breque Pulon also, right? So come on in, and let's wrap this up with so you have to see the names, which are the names that are there for them? Begoña, you're here, and both of you, yeah, Carolina sits next to me. There's a presentation. Okay, I already have. Yes. I'll take it. Guilherme. Let's see if Guilherme will have a problem with the presentation. I will move. So where is it? Okay, Roberta, deixa eu fazer tu, eu não estou conseguindo. So we will start with Rafael, and then let's put it in the. Okay, take this one off. We'll start with Rafael. Maybe Rafael, you have a presentation, right? No, Rafael, Guilherme. Rafael, you have a presentation. So the presentation has to be here. Carolina, do you have a presentation? No. So let's switch places, and Roberto will switch your names, so it is easier.
Where's
That one is one, two. I think it's that one. Okay, let's start with Rafael Teixeira Ramos. Oh, so we could start together, Roberto. Rafael, you should use this computer, okay? So you can just put it like this. And Rafael, in this third panel, new directions in maritime mediation, the idea is to talk a little bit about some challenges. We ended up with challenges in the last panel, so let's go on with that. Some challenges in maritime mediation. And the first has to do, which we could say, with traditional collective actions for protection of workers, but also where mediation could be a valuable tool. So, Rafael Teixeira Ramos will talk about mediation, an efficient tool to solve the port strike at Lisboa and Setúbal harbors. So, Rafael, I give you the floor. You already know up to 10 minutes to do your presentation.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dus. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor Dus. Thank you, all the colleagues of the project, of the organizers. It's been this past 2 weeks, a lot of knowledge and experience that we have exchanged. So thank you all my colleagues too. And talking about the mediation in the as the tool to solve the strike in Lisbon and port harbors. Introducing it's interesting case because it's a real case. It's about to start the strike, and what is interesting is to see the interdisciplinary between maritime law and labor law. So about the about the real dock employee strike, the trade unions have sent a strike notice to the business companies at the port, a business operator company, to start the strike. And the main problem, they say, it's curious because they claim that they are not allowed to practice their right to strike, which is under the Portugal Constitution and Labor Code Constitution. So the main problem, the main claim of the strike is actually the right to strike. It's just that. It's not like to get more salary. It's not the main problem. It's not to get more salary or to get more conditions to work. And the thing is, many companies on the port, they are frustrating. They have been frustrating their right to strike because they have been substitute the workers. They have been using temporary workers to work in their place while they are striking. So this is not good because the meaning of strike is to pressure the employers to sit on the table and negotiate. And And we are defending on the paper that mediation is very good to solve the problem, because in documents from labor law, they used to say that the conflict here about the strike is good to all the society, because it's not just conflict indeed, but it's a good opportunity to get along with their problems, to figure out what is going on between the relationship between employees and employers relation, and to find out the best solution. The best solution for the moment, to be satisfied for this solution. So they're going to meet, they're going to put the problem on the table, and they will decide together to solve the problems. So another strike that will come when perhaps there are a lot of problems or new problems, but not the same ones. And the conclusions are the great belief on mediation for that, because they can, how I said, because they can do by themselves the solution. They don't have to knock on the state door and ask for the judge, impose the solution of the problem. And figuring out the main problems, which sometimes is beyond the labor rights, maybe it's the best way to solve this problem, because this is the unique case, not unique, but this is an interesting case that they are not on a strike for better conditions, like I said, but they're going to start the strike to the right to strike. It's just that. So nothing better than mediation for that. And finding out a satisfaction solution. Sometimes, as a lawyer, I've seen strikes and solution by the state, because in Brazil it's not so well used in mediation. And I see a lot of times that when the labor courts have to sign, sometimes they are not feeling so well to do that. They have to do that, and the parties most of the time are not satisfied what happened there. So it becomes better when the parties can get along and solve their own problems. And the idea is to be retained. It's just to see the interesting way to study maritime law with labor law, and see how the strike repercussions on maritime business and the whole society, because we're talking about transportation of the goods sources, and which impacts in the whole Portuguese society economy. And the mediation is a tool to solve the relevant strike. Maybe I would not say maybe. I'm sure. I'm pretty sure that mediation is a kind of alternative dispute resolution, which can solve the problem for the best in those kinds of strike. And to end, I cannot forget about this. I would just want to be thankful and to persons that if they don't motivate me, I wouldn't be here. One of them is Juliana and Roberta. Thank you very much for the motivation.
Thank you very much. Now it's me. Thank you very much, Rafael, for bringing to life the importance of mediation, as I said, in a traditional issue, but with a whole new level of interest once it also deals with the areas very much related to the sea, and specifically it can have to do with strikes in some cases may have to do with safety issues, work conditions that are not only normal work conditions like pay or others that every worker has. It has to do many times with specific work conditions related to the sea. So now we move on to Carolina Marques, who will dwell a little bit about who is qualified to be a part in the mediation process. So we have already some hints here in some of the other interventions of what is a mediator in some causes, what are the skills. Now we will hear more about that and the related issues and in here the talk of Carolina Marques. I give you the floor, Carolina, you have 10 minutes.
So I want to start with everyone today. The ones that are here in person and the ones that joined us online. And thank you in particular to all of MediMare team for this opportunity to be here today. I won't provide much historical context here for the idea that I bring. I'll just say that mediation, as you all know, is an alternative dispute resolution method that has growing popularity and is now more widely discussed too. I think this project we are currently working on, MediMare has already demonstrated the significance. So the alternative methods for solving disputes are becoming more visible and appear to be potential cause of containing some of the judicial crisis though. So my idea is just an idea for the official paper, seeks to explore the subject of mind theoretically participate in a mediation process as a party. So as the definition on the provisions of Portuguese mediation law is defined, mediation as a form of alternative dispute resolution carried out by public or private entities through which two or more parties in a dispute seek to voluntarily reach a settlement with the assistance of a conflict mediator. So the idea that I bring things on the concept of legal capacity as the potential outcome of legal personality too. So anyone with personality can in theory have legal capacity too. So if mediation is a method other than going to court to resolve disputes, then possible the parties to a mediation process don't need that don't need to be a legal party. Possible don't need to have a legal personality. So then the question that arise for me these past 2 weeks with my colleagues and the intensive course was who is eligible to participate in the mediation process as a party, and the questions that arise was maybe who desires to or who has an interest in that. But for me, it was like who would be interested in this. So the next question was a reflection on who can participate in the mediation process as a party. For example, the idea that it's grown that robots could act as mediators has gained some traction in both the scientific and the social media communities.
So in this work, I raised the question of can a robot be a part or a party in the mediation process, not as a mediator, but as a party. And I raised the question of the natural gifts like a sea or an ocean or a river, and then we could explore the representation parts. This reflection will involve thinking about these issues in relation to general principles of mediation, namely the principle of fairness or execution. Consider the principle of execution, particularly in the light of the fact that among other things, the Article 9B of the law of mediation stipulates that the parties should have the capacity for the celebration of the mediation agreement in order for it to have some legal force as a judgment. Additional aspect in the law in the Article 18 that parties may appear personal or act as their own representative during mediation session while being accompanied by attorneys, and further in the Article 36 of the same law that says that constitutive or regulatory provisions of public mediation systems may impose the obligation on the parties to participate in mediation sessions individually, even if their representation is not possible. And in the case of criminal mediation, for instance, where both parties must participate personally, even if an attorney or arbitrator is present to provide support. So, how do we reconcile these regulations with the idea of involving other potential stakeholders in the mediation process? And yet, to sum up, the general idea is to reflect on what the role of the parts is on a mediation process, arising questions that relate to the current area of research and trying to determine whether or not they are valid or how they might affect the institution of mediation. Yeah, and that's it. Once again, thank you all for being here and thank you for listening. I know this is maybe just a crazy idea, but I was incented to come here too by my colleagues in the course. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. We could see that the intensive course allowed for what we expected and wanted at first, which was an increase in of course, the knowledge on maritime mediation, but also the interest and will to learn more about it, even beyond the scope of the course. And I think we got this, and the presence of some of the intensive course students, which are already professionals, but indeed also wanted to be here today, shows this by far. And we will go now to Begoña Fernandez Rodriguez. You need the presentation. So I'll just switch it to you. So Begoña Fernandez Rodriguez, a professor, a colleague that is here in Coimbra under a visiting scholar title, and that will talk also about a very pressing issue, mostly before and after COVID, but now how things go. And she'll talk about online dispute resolution, ODR, platforms as a good way to conduct maritime mediation. And this is a question mark at the end, so she won't be critical on this. I'm just gonna change the computer to see, or we change places. Let's see if it goes. Let's see. Let's see.
That we can. I don't go there.
Yes. Oi, oi, oi. E qualquer coisa correu mal. E
Does it work? Yeah, apparently.
I think it's working. Let's see. Let's check. We're here. So
Do we have to share this one? Or
we're not sharing the screen because it can be seen there. So it's a bit easier that people just look. So I think it's this one, MediMare presentation.
yeah.
You need to share?
Because
of the YouTube, which is this is very public.
So let us just see, it's better to just minimize because you have to put it like this. And I'll just maximize, share screen. I think it's this one, right? Online, this pitch resolution. So I think it's done. Let's just hope it doesn't change. Let's just, it's a lot of space.
Yeah, maybe we can move it.
Down, right? Well, try.
Yeah.
So after this prelude, you can just come a bit closer so that you manage. Come a bit closer to me and you can start with your presentation. And you have, as you know, already 10 minutes to do so.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like Professor Dulce for the quick presentation and giving me the floor. I'm really glad to be in a table like this one where things like robots, artificial intelligence, online stuff is present, because I don't know about my colleagues, but it usually feels a bit like being the black sheep of the group when talking about this kind of stuff. So I'm really glad to have you here as a support. First of all, to those of you who don't know me, as Dulce said, my name is Begoña Fernández. I'm also a PhD research student back in the University of Granada, and currently I'm doing here a research stay under the direction of Professor Dulce. I'm really sorry for the inconvenience of the voice, but the air conditioning is killing me. As I was saying, I'm really glad to be here, and it's also an honor to say that in the short period that I've been here, I can say that I'm not only among colleagues, but friends. So thank you for that. Back in Granada, I belong to a unit research called Data Society, Security and Protection of Rights. From our unit, we research many fields regarding law digitalization. One of them is ODR platforms, therefore the selection of my topic. Now, without further ado, the title of my presentation, as you can see there, is Are Online Dispute Resolution Platforms a Good Way to Conduct Maritime Mediation? The idea is just to analyze if current ODR platforms are suitable for this maritime mediation idea that we are discussing here today. At the beginning of the Congress, Professor Katia said that one of the aims of this project was to study or guess if maritime mediation would need any specificity. Well, the idea behind this topic, it's a bit the opposite. It's, do we already have an architecture or a digital tool that we can already implement in that idea of maritime mediation? The other platforms if you don't know, are online dispute resolution platforms that allow the parties to solve a dispute without the need of being physically present at the same room. As it has been discussed previously in the Congress, and we all know, mediation is an alternative dispute resolution method that enables the party to resolve their controversies without the need to resort to a judge, a court, or a third person. Therefore, as advanced previously, the question would be, are current ODR platforms suitable for maritime mediation? Well, technologically wise, yes. I mean, ODR platforms are nowadays a reality. These technological advancements make it possible to virtually connect individuals who are physically located in different places of the world. User-wise, on the contrary, is not so crystal clear yet. Why is this? Because these ODR platforms present both advantages and disadvantages. Before continuing, if you have seen the abstract, I have to apologize because advantages were thought to be presented in advance. But due to time limitation and as a matter of opportunity, I'm going to present first the drawbacks, because I think the drawbacks open up better space for discussion among researchers. Don't worry, we will get to the advantages, but not as deep as with the drawbacks. As I said, regarding the drawbacks, I'm going to highlight just two of them. The most important ones here are the ones that caught my personal eye. Maybe someone has others, but the first one would be the inefficiency by design of these platforms. And second, the alienation that the person or the user can have while using this kind of platforms. Regarding the design of the platform, it's crucial for ensuring that the parties can navigate the process and obtain the final resolution that they are trying to get. Otherwise, the party might feel frustrated and abandon the mediation. The idea behind is that the platform must deliver what it is expected from it, being it a complete process with a final resolution, or just to connect the parties that are in the process. It's as simple as that. I want to connect here with the concept that Sylvia Nolan used at the beginning of the Congress, talking about this user-friendly. Platforms should be also user-friendly for the parts. Otherwise, we would lose that process. As an example, unfortunately, of how ODR platforms should not be designed and published, we have the European Online Dispute Resolution Platform. This platform, I don't know if you have heard of it, is published as a way of solving dispute between consumers and traders. However, when used, it only serves for two things. First, it helps the user to determine the competent alternative dispute resolution entity to solve their dispute. And second, it helps or it automatically transmits the user's complaint to the competent alternative dispute resolution entity. Therefore, the solution of the problem is not reached. If you have ever used, as I said, this ODR platform, you would also find the so-called direct contact module. This module is intending to connect the parties in order for them to get to an agreement. This seems a bit more like the mediation. Unfortunately, again, analyzing the final reports on the functioning of ODR platform, this module is not used by the parties. So again, the solution that we're trying to reach is not reached by the tool we have. Second, regarding the alienation I talked to you previously, it embeds two different negative effects. First, the lack of physical presence is a significant limitation when establishing the necessary trust bond between the parties and the mediators. The problem here is that the success of the mediation process is mostly based on the trust that parties have both on the process and the mediators. As a previous colleague said, Isabela Nascimento, she talked about the the need of have a comfortable space for the parties to talk and to negotiate. From my point of view, this lack of physical presence of the parts of the process would not help them to have this secure environment in order to express their feelings or opinions or whatever they may want to in the mediation. The second thing that this alienation embeds is that the physical absence leads the party to not fully perceive the situation as a genuine and personal process aimed at resolving their own dispute. They may feel detached from the process as communications are made through a screen. Here we can bring the concept that two of my colleagues here have just said previously again. Nieja and Luisa talked about the space of reasons. Here we can say that that space of reason, which I completely agree, we have to ensure that it's a safe space for the people to talk. So if it's through a screen, sometimes the person doesn't feel that liberty in order to express whatever they feel. On the other hand, I'm trying to be faster. Other platforms also present several advantages. It's not everything bad. Among them, for the sake of brevity, as I said, I'm just going to highlight two of them. I won't develop much as they're pretty straightforward, but later, if you want, we can discuss them in the Q&A part. So the first one would be cost reduction. So a significant portion of these maritime mediation cases will involve two or more parties with their respective domiciles in different cities or even countries. This situation results in travel costs associated with the mediation process, which may be borne by either one, several, or all the parties involved. The second advantages would be the immediacy. We don't need to plan trips of the parties to go to specific places, as they can just switch on their laptop, and that will be it. While these advantages and drawbacks that I have been highlighted can be analyzed from an objective or, let's say, an outsider point of view, their determination ultimately depends on the user. It is undeniable that with the advancement of society, especially with these new generations that have already grown up with online platforms, and also with the development of new technologies, online dispute resolution platforms are a tool that facilitates the society access to the resolution process. But resorting to these types of platforms should be always an option to the parties and never an imposition by the mediation center. As expected, digitalization can have a relevant utility in mediation. What we have to ponder here is if it needs to be used in the entire process or just in a part of it. To sum up and to conclude, just three basic ideas to keep in mind. First of all, that due to the advantages and the drawbacks that these platforms present, the use of ODR platforms must be analyzed by the user and should never be imposed by the mediation center. Second, these ODR platforms should be designed with the goal of providing utility to the user. And finally, we have an opportunity here, and are the digital tools and the online processes. What we have to think here is it necessary that we use them through all the process, or can we use them just in certain parts of the process? Thank you very much for listening, and hope it was not too boring.
Very good. Well, as investigators, I know that we sometimes feel alone until we find someone that shares a bit our line of thought, not the ideas, but that with whom we can discuss. I was lucky enough to have lots of people to discuss with in this maritime mediation project, and we learned a lot with each other. With ODR, we can also talk, and you'll find your network. So it was really good to see the insight you brought and the way you, as we can see, it's not only legal, you already browse through the platforms and you know what's lacking, what should be bettered for this to really work, to this to be really a alternative, right? An alternative. So thank you very much, Begonia, and we'll go on to Guilherme. Guilherme, please, our last speaker of the, should I say day or night? I don't know. We're in that transition mode somewhere over. It's already, well, it's already after 19. So Guilherme will now continue with also a reflection on a very, it's not emerging, but the reflection is emerging. Okay? The contribution of artificial intelligence to the closing process of settlement. So let's hear Guilherme on this. Guilherme was already one of our speakers in one of our workshops, and it went really well. And so Guilherme, it will go perfectly now. Okay, so I'll give you the floor. Don't forget, 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Christine. Good afternoon, everybody. Dr. Christine is very glad to be with you today. And it's a great pleasure to be here again, and now in person. Because I took part in a workshop at the end of March. As Dr. Begonia said, the lack of the physical presence make this opportunity very, very nice for me. Before starting, I would like to say thanks to all the MediMare partners for this wonderful event, this wonderful place here. I would like to congratulate the Polytechnic of Coimbra for hosting the MediMare intensive training program in the last 2 weeks. The Norwegian University of Science and Technology, all the members of the NTNU Social Research Group. Thank you. And also the FCT Nova from Lisbon and the Coimbra University with the Institute for the Institute of Legal Research to host this event today. And I also would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Maria José Capello. She's not here anymore, but she stimulated me and my curiosity about artificial intelligence and mediation during my PhD program. I am a PhD candidate here in the Coimbra University. I also express the same gratitude to Dr. Lopes for also the coordination of this very important initiative, because this is to enhance and spread the culture of mediation in Europe and as well in Brazil, since we have a few Brazilian students here. I think that mediation is cultural. There are problems, face them, and try to solve them, as we saw in some previous presentation here, to work on their communication skills and try to find out the best way to solve, and each one of us find the best way in our lives. We have to spread this future not only business but with the family and the our life. But my presentation here is about a subject that has risen in Professor Carlo Corcione participation in one of our workshops. And during the question and answers, the situation has arisen because it's a very arid subject. It's the issue about the final act of the mediation, which we call it. It's called the closing of the mediation or the settlement. Is the moment when lawyers discuss the wording of the mediation agreement. So this is a very arid subject. It's different from the major subjects that we saw here today. The maritime subjects are very colorful, very nice to discuss about trade and the subjects that I have through them. But it's very important, especially for those who will be practitioners on mediation. I don't know how many of you have faced the mediation or negotiation when we have to write down the deeds. This is a very tough, difficult activity. So I decided to just to put a little bit of more color in that arid scenario. So I decided to analyze how artificial intelligence can contribute to this process. So during a maritime dispute, mediation, the discussion goes around the problems per se. So parties discuss about delay on a vessel uploading at a shipping terminal, about conservation of specific bulk cargo, solid bulk cargo like grains or minerals or whatever. Collisions that sometimes don't destroy the vessel, but determine a safety due diligence in order to check if there is any structure damage. So this is also cause delays on the operation, penalties for damages in the containers when the containers purchase of containers or delay on acquisition of new ships, or sale and purchase of second-hand ships, the conditions of the ships, and also as well charter party contracts. Now I was like to address also the recycling of ships that we see this problem from the Hong Kong Convention after the ships end their lives, crash on lives, so recycle them. So it is another issue. So oil spills, and we saw today a lot of environmental impacts problems. The King of Wales, it was very nice to see that they suffer with the sound. It was very, very interesting for me. And among many others, so you can see how powerful are the major problems involved in the mediation. And that was the subject of my previous speech on the workshop. So I don't want to go through this again. But is also going to the areas, the desert, what I'm going to address. The parties discuss during the mediation the amount to be paid, number of installments, interest rates, penalty laws if they reach any obligation in the settlement, discounts on the charter party contracts. But however, after shaking their hands on the major aspects, so the executives of those companies and maritime companies and ship companies have this participation. Often indirectly, the executives don't show, and sometimes they use representatives, but they leave the problem to lawyers, they leave the problem to accountants, so they have to go on the wording of the settlement. And then it starts another mediation, secondary mediation, we shall call it. This arose on that workshop by Carlo Porcioni, and he stated that sometimes this second mediation process can put the whole process in risk. Okay, so this is a very arid subject, a arid topic, but it's very important in practice and also with our activity as lawyers. So the subjects for closing mediation are basically tax issues and financial statements, how any company, because they have a headquarter, a number of affiliates, and so where each country law demands how to be booked, the contingencies and all the specificities of the problem. So just to rest an example, Brazil and the United States don't have the IVA system as they use. And any country have their specificities on how to book their financial statements. And sometimes the contingency is not in the main companies, is in a branch, and those subjects were not sometimes were not took in attention by the executives during the major negotiation process. They arise during the second mediation process. So this was the subject that drew my attention, and I decided to bring it here for you. Based on this information I gave here, parties should work together again with their lawyers or accountants and try to find out a win-win solution. Find the best way to don't pay too much tax or to not spend a lot of money by transferring amounts or violating any rule in accountants. So this is a very difficult negotiation, but it is not only that. Companies also have their compliance policies. And while I was preparing myself for this presentation, I remember the one case I acted in a negotiation in a public concession contract. And after a long negotiation with a public authority, we found out an agreement. And during the signing, one of the parties, foreign parties, was a concession in Brazil, partner from my body said, well, I cannot sign this because Brazil we call TAC, Termo de Ajustamento de Conduta, which is Conduct Adjustment Agreement. So based on that, on the headquarter legislation, they could not adjust conduct before public authorities because that means in that specific legislation that there was something wrong to be fixed. And so it implies in another many consequences there. So we had to convince the public authority to change the name of the agreement in order to one of the partners of the company decide to sign that agreement. And what is, you may ask, what is AI about that? Well, this is the challenge. I'm sitting in the same place as Isabella, and she said that this is a challenge to mediation in artificial intelligence is also a challenge. And I see that in the near future, we will be using that because there are some literature that some transnational companies use already artificial intelligence to make their tax planning. So they are using robots to do this. And it's not new because since 2018, the European Commission for Efficiency of Justice, organ of the European Commission, also produced the European Ethical Charter of the use of artificial intelligence in judicial system in their environment. So we are not so in a future, and this is a very interesting place to research because they have guidelines for e-auctions and how to digitalize the judicial system. It's a very and there I found that definition that algorithm is a finite sequence of rules, logical, rational instructions, making it possible to obtain a result from the initial input of information. This sequence may be part of an automated execution process and draw on models designed through machine learning. So machine learning and algorithm decision making is not so new. We are talking about 5 years ago. And we have today the AlphaGo experience and the Deep Blue experience where the machine learned how to play the Go and chess, and they beat their professional players. So what I want to address here is that in this secondary negotiation process, there are no subjective issues to be addressed anymore. There are only technical issues put as input, so that artificial intelligence can run a lot of data, and they need big data, a lot of information to produce better results because they work in how can I say it, a probabilistic association. That's how the robot brain works on. It's different from our way of thinking. They work on probabilistic association. So the parties should, I think, as Pedro Domingos, they must prepare their companies to create their own algorithms, which all the database about tax planning, about companies' policies there, because those algorithms will liaise and help them to create the best path during this work process. So in the near future, it's the companies will do as Binco do. If you saw the Binco website, they have a database of several model clauses and contracts. You go there, and it's so based on their cases, the parties' cases, they create those databases. So companies should do the same, because it's just a matter of how you teach the algorithm to find out a better output. So in those cases, and we agree that there's no space for artificial intelligence as mediators, but in the secondary process, the wording, I think that they can play a more intensive role here, because they are facing only objective things. So I think it will be like a little bit of like a ways that can prepare and can use the ChatGPT to help parties to write down the settlement. So that's what I want to address here. Thank you very much for your attention. Once more, Dr. Dulce, and I'll be glad here to provide any clarification.
Thank you, Glenn. Again, does anyone have any question? I was sure you wouldn't, because at this hour it's quite complicated. It was complicated before, it's even more complicated. In any case, I will also continue and close with a dare as before. So I will ask each one of you a word or a sentence for what is still lacking in mediation for it to be relevant or more relevant today. So what is still lacking? Quality,
Practice.
Begonia, do you have a better one?
No, actually, I was going to say knowledge, but regarding practice, like the more we use it, the more we know about it, the more we will be open to use it.
Thank you, Begonia. You, Rafael, what is lacking in mediation?
Satisfaction result.
Okay, we're all going. Carolina, you will close this.
For me, I think maybe divulgation to communication to the way the artificial hands for us.
Okay.
Some education information.
So it lacks everything from education to knowledge to practice to satisfaction. So we have a lot to do in this project still, although it's at the end, as Maria Jose put it. The end sometimes are just new beginnings. So we'll continue working on this, and tomorrow we will also have the second part of our event. So join us either in the room or well, follow us. I don't think you follow anyone on YouTube, but I'm on all these, so you just watch us on YouTube. I think it's better like this, right? So just keep informed and for the project, for this event, and for future events and projects that for sure the team and each one of the involved partners will establish and develop. Okay, thank you very much, and see you tomorrow.